Okay, this is the November 12th Finance Committee. In attendance is Mike Wolf.
Aaron Durso.
Kathy Haynes.
Linda Heideck.
Lauren Small.
David Rathgeb.
Austin Peterson.
And Mr. Scott said he would be here, but a little late, so we'll see if he actually comes, or Mr. Bucky Scott also. So I guess we'll start off. Do you want to start off with just the audit, and we'll...
I believe the audit went well. She's going to go through it. Linda's going to go through it in a little bit more detail.
Right.
But the fund balance was the major thing. But we had access funds that were out there, about 477,000, somewhere right in that range. And we still have about 276 that's out there to be taken, but that is not included in our budget. So we'll be looking at those numbers when we go through next time. And then the the access funds were about 500,000, but there was an assessment amount of about in excess of the 1.7 million in fund balance due to the assessment amount adjustment of 472,000. The assessment amount was changed. I guess it was updated within the PDE 2028. They put that number in from the county. So when that assessment number and the number that was on Lauren's spreadsheet, the one that we were using, it more income that way because of the assessment value. And then there was a state funding, was the, I just lost my train of thought. There was state funding that came in about 233 more. That was between the special ed and the basic ed funding. And then the tuition projected, for special ed, we always project about a little high because you never know what you're going to get. So we ended up about 500 to the good in tuition. But that's just how we budget for tuition in special ed. Right.
Mr. Bucky Scott has joined us.
So, with the state funding, how did we wind up with more? I mean, that's usually a pretty set number, right?
There were some adjustments as we went through. I know IDEA changed a little bit, and there's certain numbers within. I know it was the basic ed and the special ed that I saw that was adjusted. It amounted to around 200,000. Just the numbers that we had used from the beginning, forecasting forward. The numbers that were set inside the budget, they had changed since then.
Well, it's good.
Oh,
Fun
that's
for a
good.
change. Got more than what we're... Now, those access funds that we claim, that we got the money, is that money that just goes back into the general fund?
Yes, because they're expenditures that were already happened. That's how we get
So
access
it's-
to those funds.
Okay, but they're not earmarked like a cafeteria fund. Those funds are earmarked for just this.
No, we
Okay.
put it right back in the general fund because it was general fund funds that purchased.
Okay.
Those special ed expenditures from the general fund prior
Yeah.
years.
Well, I know it was a question, that had come up before, so
And
I
there's been
figured to ask
discussion
it.
in the past about establishing assigned funds for special ed in the event of a bad year. That's something to consider. But to answer your original question, it's general fund.
It's general fund.
Okay.
You should have a special one, personally.
Okay.
You want me to go through this?
Yep, you can go ahead.
Don't be alarmed by the size. We're not going to touch every page, that's for sure.
Thank God for me.
So we pay by the ounce, right?
Something like that. No, I'm just going to hit the highlights of this, and you'll see some of what Kathy just mentioned. You'll see that when we go through the report. But this is all the required disclosures, and we probably added 30 pages to the report this year just for other post-employment benefits. Those only go on the government-wide statements. They really have nothing to do with how you're budgeting and how you run your operations year after year. So I'm not going to spend time on those. I'm really going to go to the fund statements and talk more about those statements that impact you. The first thing I'd like to do is actually start at the back of the report, and that is on page 93. We were required to actually do 3 different types of audits out here. and that is mandated by the types of money you receive. You do receive over $750,000 in federal funds. So we do an audit under generally accepted auditing standards. We do an audit under government auditing standards, where we have to look at controls and compliance with government rules, regulations. Are you filing your taxes in time? Are you assessing things the way you're supposed to? Are you filing the required documentation? Then, because of the federal monies you receive, we actually do a third level of testing on the federal awards. So page 93 is actually the results of your audit. Okay. You will see that we have unmodified opinions, which is the highest level of assurance that we can issue. We do still have one material weakness, and that has to do with the amount and the quantity and the materiality of the adjustments we had to make this year. When I compare this to last year we had 2 material weaknesses, 3 significant deficiencies. So the other 4 went away. It's really just the material adjustments. And we know Kathy was working. A lot of the adjustments were proposed as we were working with her out here. So we're hoping that that binding goes away next year. So I
Scott
know.
won't take care of that, Erwin. It's an inside joke.
So
That's okay, I used
It's
it
already
earlier.
done.
Yeah, I used it earlier.
It's already
Yeah.
done.
yeah, so that's
Guess we should stop the, overuse.
That's why we have 1X when you see questions yes and no, and all the rest are no, because last year we had more X's in the yes column. Those have all been corrected. And then down below, you do see the federal programs that we had to test. The Child Nutrition Cluster and IDEA were the 2 programs we had to test. The last question on this, did you qualify as a low-risk auditee? The answer is no, and that is because of the findings we had last year. We have 1 finding this year, so the answer next year is still going to be no. You have to go 2 years without a material weakness. So,
Mr. Jeff Scott has joined our meeting.
okay. So with that said, we're actually going to go to page 75. 75 is the results of your general fund operations for the year. And it's a comparison of actual results compared to budget. And the variances are shown. So you can see that in revenues, we were actually 1.1 million over what we projected. And a lot of that is sitting in local sources, 581,000. A couple of components there. And you're no different than any other district. Interest income results were much better than they had been historically, so your interest earnings are up over what you budgeted. Real estate transfer tax is another area which was over budget, and again, that has to do with the home sales right now. Things are really been moving fast and quickly on the market. And then one other area was the interim taxes. Those were actually higher than what was budgeted. So there were a couple other minor differences, but those were the large ones that stuck out when I went through it. Then you'll see the federal sources were over budget by the 516,000. That was the access funding that Kathy had been mentioning, basically.
How much was transfer tax over?
Transfer tax was over 295,000. Yeah, so that was close to 300. And again, you are very similar to all the outlying districts that we audit. We saw this EIT. Your EIT wasn't that much larger. It was a little bit higher than what you budgeted, but some of the districts really had a heavy variance in that area. So if you look at our expenditures, which is the rest of this page, about 2/3 of the way down the page, you will actually see the line that says total expenditures. Your expenses for the year were $53,690,000, which was $1,022,000 less than what you budgeted. A couple of components. When we looked at salaries, those were actually pretty well in line with what was budgeted. it was some of the benefits. They came in lower than what was budgeted. If you see the line where it says operation and maintenance of plant services, we had a $361,000 variance there. That was due to paying less. I think there was a large contract that you had out, and you actually ended up paying less because there were some disputes with them trying to get the work done. GSA or something like that.
GCN, yeah.
Yeah. And then right underneath that, student transportation, you did bid transportation and you changed carriers. So that is the reason why you have a savings in that area.
We didn't change.
You did
We
not
didn't change. We had an RFP, but we have the same carriers.
Okay. In there were some savings though.
I thought our transportation
Which is
costs were
probably-
higher.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah. So it might have come in with less trips, sir. And then the other thing that you did do last year was you actually refinanced one of your debt instruments. And you'll see that under other financing sources and uses. You'll see the refinancing of refunding bonds and then payments to the refunding bond escrow agent. If you go up the page under debt service, some of the $59,000 savings is because of that. You'll recognize the rest of the savings because there was over $800,000 of cash flow savings because of the refinancing. You'll see those savings over the next so many years. Okay. So if you look at the third line from the bottom, after you look at your revenues and your expenditures and your other financing sources and uses, you had budgeted a $1 use of fund balance. You actually generated in excess of $2,143,000 for the year. So that brings your ending fund balance to $7,289,000. Are there any questions on this page? Otherwise, I'm just going to move forward to where the fund balance is actually reflected and talk a little bit about the buckets that it's sitting in. Okay, if we go to page 17. Page 17, the far left-hand column is your general fund. Again, page 17. So when we look at our fund balance, our total general fund balance was $7,289,000. You'll see that non-spendable is $166,000. It's non-spendable because you already spent it. If you look at prepaid expenses up top, you already, I think there was a payment for debt. I think the capital leases, we made the payment that was due July, and that's what's sitting in prepaid expenditures. But underneath that, we have our assigned category. And what's sitting in assigned fund balance right now is you did budget, when you put the 18-19 budget together, you budgeted the use of fund balance of $2,141,952. So that's one component of it. We also have set aside some money for the retirement rate increases because those increases are still projected for the next 5-6 years. And money that's sitting there for those increases are $1,727,000. And then there's one last component, and that is $1 million for capital projects. That's what accounts for the $4,869,000 sitting in assigned, leaving you an unassigned fund balance of $2,253,000. That's 3.8% of next year's budgeted expenditures. Okay, so the state law says you cannot have more than 8%, so you're sitting at 3.8. Just one component. One of the things I always look at, because I'm often asked, what is the right fund balance? There's no definitive answer. All I say is do cash flows. One payroll here with benefits is $1,151,000. So that's something to keep in mind. That really is what, your big driver, that's your big cost on a school financial statements,
One pay period,
one pay period.
yeah. Yeah. So 1 month,
Is over 2
double
million.
that, a little bit
Yeah.
more than double that.
Multiply times 26 pay periods
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
for the
it's,
year.
let's think of it as a month, like if you had no money for a month,
Right.
you're in the hole 2.2,
3 years ago, you went 7 months.
yeah.
And then that's what I was keeping, the 1 month in there, the 2.2.
So that's something I always mention. Just consider that, and also look if you have any large debt service payments in July, August, September, before real estate taxes really start coming in for the next year. Because that's the other item that you have to make sure you have cash flow for.
Is there recommendations around just the swing in the fund balance? So, we have periods where the fund balance could, you could end the year at 5 million, but at one point you're at less than $1 million. Right, and then it builds up as you start to get revenues.
I mean, basically, the state set the rule at 8%. They don't want schools to just start accumulating fund balance. And you
Yeah.
just read in the paper about certain schools that have. As long as you have a plan for your fund balance, I mean, you should be not just looking at next year's operations, but if you have a lot of capital improvements coming up, those items can really draw down cash flow. You guys are already heavy on the debt compared to a lot of districts, so that may not be the way to go. Can you pay some of those projects with excess cash instead of borrowing more money? That's one thing to consider. Your fund balance will fluctuate, but again, I usually recommend that it not go too much below 3%. And again, because when you start correlating that with what a payroll is, you're basically covering, right here, you're covering about a month worth of payroll and related benefit costs.
Yeah, because didn't we, Lauren, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we have a stretch where we had to borrow to pay payroll until we got,
No,
It
we
didn't-
had fund balance. We never had to borrow during that.
okay, that was like, that was
We're lucky, we don't
just
get
in
much, we
case.
don't get much of our budget from the state. Money from the state, right?
We never had to borrow.
Okay,
Depends what way you
Some,
look at it.
yeah, a lot of the districts
I
had
was
to
being-
take
I was
out
being sarcastic.
anticipation loans, and
yeah,
that really the interest ate into their revenue.
They took revenue anticipation notes anticipating the state would reimburse them for the borrowing costs, and it didn't happen.
They won't.
Now, would the payroll in the summer be lower than the payroll during the school year?
It's
'Cause-
pretty well balanced because of the way.
I think most teachers take year
Well,
round, right?
but I was thinking
Aides.
the hourly aides that,
That's a little bit
It's slightly,
It's
but
just
yeah, it's small.
yeah,
It's just
Not as
in the
material.
grand, in the $27 million scheme of things.
yeah, I
So
understand.
teachers have the option, right? They can
Yes.
take year round, or they
Yeah,
can.
correct.
They do.
Well, we get,
School year.
it would be lump sum at the end of the school year, but it's not like a true 20 pay or it's semantics, but.
Any questions on the general fund? If not, I'm just going to switch over to the cafeteria fund. The cafeteria operations are on page 22. Page 22, the third line from the bottom is your change in net position of $126,000. The one thing to remember, included in your food service revenue, is actually the prior year settlement from Sodexo that got paid. So that was over $100,000, so factor that in when you look at your true operating results from last year. Still not bad, because we see quite a few of our smaller schools have difficulty breaking even in the cafeteria fund, just because of the number of meals and the decline in the students that are buying lunch. So,
When's their contract up?
Well, she's referring to Sodexo, our prior provider. We're
Okay.
currently with Nutrition Inc.
Okay.
We're in year 3.
I thought we were in 4. We have one more left after this year.
One more renewal.
I believe it's one more renewal.
The final year with Sodexo was 14, 15. 15, 16 from the outsourcing, or 16, 17, yeah, 18, 19, yeah, 1 year before.
Yeah, one more
And
year.
you can only have 4 renewals, but it's an annual contract as such.
The other statements that I just want to call your attention to are the government-wide, which I mentioned the fact that we had to pick up other post-employment benefits on those statements. Statements are actually on page 15 and 16. You look at page 15, just point out some of the components here, but under liabilities, long-term liabilities, your share of the pension liability at the state is $80,207,000. It's about 2/3 of the way down the page. Right underneath that are the 2 areas that we just added. The net benefits for health insurance premium assistance, that is actually the program run through PSERS. And then we also have the district plan for other post-employment benefits, $3,975,000. Again, when you look at the bottom of this page, you're no different than any other district we audit. Everyone has negative numbers, especially since we added the other post-employment benefits. What we can tell you is the bond rating agencies are really not looking at these schedules. They are looking at your fund balance, the ability to have a fund balance, the reality, can you budget for long-term projects besides just next year's budget? So those are the types of things they're actually looking for. If we pulled out all those items, the pension, the OPEB, the district plan, and the piece through PSERS, you would actually have a $6,742,000 positive fund balance. So I did want to talk to you about those two, because when you flip to these numbers and you look at this, your first glance is, well, why do we have a negative number here? But it's all because of the fact that we have the board pension and other post-employment benefits. The rest of this report is really a lot of disclosures. The one thing we did do is on the table of contents. We actually now list out the footnote disclosure and the page it's on, because like I said, we added about 30 pages related to the other post-employment benefit disclosures. So probably the one disclosure that you're interested in is the long-term liability and your payment schedule, and that's on page 47. '47 actually lists your debt. And then on page 50, you see the debt maturities for all the issues that you have outstanding. Any questions on the financial statement?
No questions? Okay, thank you. Is there anything else?
I have a couple of letters, so I don't know, Kathy. That's the representation letter, so to get our final reports back, I need one of those signed and given back to me. We also had a communication letter which has our adjustments attached to it. I didn't kill a lot of trees, so I'm just giving that one to you, Kathy. It has the adjustments. You should have those all now.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah. And then, and you can see the number and extent of the adjustment. So there's 2 copies. And the last one is our management letter, things that we saw that didn't rise to the level of being included in the report, but things that can be improved. There's 3 of them that way. And if you want to take, pass it down.
Oh,
and then-
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm just going to talk briefly about that. The purchase order approval process, we just recommend you revisit that process because purchase orders are supposed to be completed before you actually purchase items. When we did our testing, many of them were after the items were purchased and already here. So that's defeating the purpose of a purchase order, which is to basically have controls in the whole process and have appropriate approvals before you actually buy the item.
Do you have examples of those?
Is that a particular
Yeah,
area?
because-
It's
No, there
basi-
was like 3 of them that Roxanne had brought to me, and there was an explanation for the ones. There was a whole department for special ed with the POs, the secretarial staff that's in there, they were turned over. So we were doing the POs on our end, and that was all explained. There was reasons for it. It wasn't an absence of not doing the right thing in the approval process. It was the fact that there was nobody doing that job.
And that was, yeah, there were actually a little more than 3.
There was
So-
3 specific ones that she brought to me in the very beginning, but
Mhm.
then there was the whole stack of them that are from special ed, and there's also the ones from maintenance, where Casey has that ability to do that.
Yeah.
When
For
he needs
emergency,
parts.
you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, so just revisit that policy. So when there are people out, you want to make sure that that process still takes place and they have somebody looking at it.
So in the case that she's bringing up emergencies, like for maintenance, what are they supposed to do?
Basically, do you usually have a department head for maintenance? Yeah.
He is the
That-
one
That,
doing the emergency purchases. He's the one, yeah.
yeah,
So Casey's the one
Yeah.
that approve his emergency. Just fill out a purchase order and
Mhm.
approve, you know,
yeah.
We try to do a general one in the beginning, but sometimes there's things we're not going to be able to predict.
things go wrong. Doors break.
Clock's gonna work. The meal charge policy, so how much money did we actually write off the student?
11,500. We went up, it was like 3,000 last year. It's 11,500 this year.
Is that primarily at the high school, or?
There
Just kids
was
that moved out
some
of
at
this?
the high school. I don't know what percentage it was. I gave the list to Lauren, we divided it up by the school. But I know that the robocalls stopped last year. And they stopped because of that new policy they were doing, the shaming thing. So what I did was I turned it back on this year, and we actually sent out a mass, where we are right now, collection letters, saying, hey, you have a balance.
Yeah, no, we do
Contact
have some
us.
transient students that are in or out, you're always gonna have some of that.
We're gonna have
but-
some. 3,000 is okay, that would be an average good, but 11,000 is very excessive.
Yeah, we have various comments here, but the other one that we really want to mention is the software package. And I know that you're actually changing packages.
Yes.
So with the new package, just make sure the budgeted numbers are working because the state looks at that. You guys need that. And I know the final budget wasn't matching our report and it was matching a spreadsheet you had, but when the state comes in, they're going to look at your ledger just like we did. So
Yep.
And that's under the fixed asset.
that's under the current budget revenue amounts in the software system. Yeah. It's on the first page, bottom. So when you looked at what was in the system, it still doesn't necessarily match the spreadsheet we finally ended up using to agree to what, sorry, what's in the report.
And the same thing then, if I'm reading this, is happening on the fixed asset accounting side of
Right,
things as
so
well.
hopefully yeah, hopefully a new ledger package. But again, it's just making sure you have the time and the people that can actually use the system appropriately. So anytime you get a new system, make sure everybody is trained on how to use it. So, like I mentioned, I think overall, the audit went much better than it had the prior year. And I think, the business office is doing a good job on following up on the issues we had pointed out and trying to get things straightened out.
Okay. You're going to repeat this whole thing for the board, for the full board?
5-minute version.
Okay. Kathy, you said you had other things you want to talk about?
No, the audit was the only thing on the list. Is there something?
You had mentioned, like, there's a couple things you had mentioned that you were going to talk about, and we kind of, before she showed up, they said, oh, we could talk about this.
Oh,
I
that was
said,
just the fund, and I went over the expenditures, the reason that the,
Oh, those
the
three
fund
categories?
balance, yeah, the
Okay.
fund balance and all that.
The access money?
Yes,
and-
yes,
okay,
yes,
okay.
yes.
Well, for the benefit of, well, you heard,
Yeah, she went over it as well.
yeah.
I have a question. So, I didn't see the check register for the month yet, but did we correct the Amazon purchases, so we'll actually get to see?
They should have. I haven't seen it yet, but I know
haven't seen
that they're
it, so I'm
working on it.
saying- And we're also going to see a breakout for the corporate, purchasing card we have?
Yeah, we should be able to see that. We should be able, when she prints the list.
Okay.
She worked on it, and she knew that she needed to get the detail in there.
Okay.
Before you see it, it should be all there. I don't see a problem with that. She was able to use a different field to put it in there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
Did you have a question, Bucky?
No, but you just brought up Amazon. Is that another area that we possibly don't get approval on before we order? Or is it pretty,
Well, the Blazer Foundation gets credit when we purchase Amazon.
okay,
And it shows up on our check blotter as Amazon, but I'm like, what are we buying? Is what I want to know. What are we buying
Right.
from Amazon?
right.
I'm sure it's
Legit, but-
legit, but I, make
Wanna
sure
know.
what we're buying.
I think that's reasonable.
I did a poll of most of the districts. We had an issue in special ed because we didn't have the secretary in there. And I've done a poll. There's a lot more stress put on. Things happen. There's going to be some POs that do get through the system because of
Oh, I'm
emergency
not-
and this and the other. But to the extent that it's been explained here, no, that's not the extent that it is now. We've cleaned it up quite a bit. There's a lot of people, they're not going to get reimbursed if they don't have the PO in there properly, and there's,
Yeah,
I have
if I
emails and-
recall, a few years back, we didn't even, it was pretty much, fair game, right? Just
Right.
Get what you want, and
exactly. So
yeah.
to the extent, it's not as bad as it, no. So, but we have the steps in place right now with special ed. Jolene is doing that now. She's handling that position, so she's able to, and she got through most of them. So when they come next year to audit our financials, they're going to see the same thing, that there's a lot of special ed invoice POs that were not done because Jolene didn't do that position until it was approved. What was that, last month? So you're going to have a few good months, and that's a lot of the charter school billing, and a lot of the tuition building, and all that stuff that's coming over from special education.
Okay. Anybody have anything? Okay, then we'll wrap up our meeting at 7:53.